In today's video, I want to talk to you about quilting motifs for modern quilts. Hi, I'm Kim Jamieson-Hirst of Chatterbox Quilts, and today I'm taking a look at this book, which is called Modern Machine Quilting. Finish Your Quilts Creatively on Your Home Machine. It's by Catherine Redford, and this is the second edition. Now, because it's the second edition means there must have been a first, right? So here is the first edition, which is also Modern Machine Quilting. But there are significant changes in this new book. So I wanted to share that with you today. So let's take a look inside, shall we? So she starts off with the introduction to her first edition and then is giving you information about this particular one. And she tells you about the book itself. She's got more ideas, since she first published the other book, which was in 2017. And so she is including them in this second edition. And the book itself is split into different areas, and she says it covers the basics of machine quilting in the first section, with the materials, tools, and setup needed for success. Then she goes into quilting with your walking foot, and not just in the ditch. So there's different ideas for how to use your walking foot when quilting your quilts. Then, of course, she goes into free motion quilting with a variety of motifs, and she has them drawn out and stitched out so you can see those motifs. She also has ideas for adding hand stitching to your quilted project, which is something she didn't have in the first edition. So that's also very interesting. So let's take a look at what she has as we go into the book. So she mentions that she has information about how to get set up and the tools you need and notions and that type of thing. And one of the things I really like is that when she's talking about certain tools, and you'll see it actually further in the book as well, she has these charts where you can fill in information that's pertinent to your, in this case, favorite threads. So for example, she'll tell you the type of thread, the needle that works best with it, what are you using for bobbin thread with it, and any observations that you may have with it. So those are really helpful to have. I would almost suggest that you photocopy a page like this so you can write things down, and you can have several pages as you build your quilting repertoire, shall we say, or as you do your quilting on your various projects. A good reference to have. And after she goes through the different notions that you need and how to get set up and everything, she also, or I should say in that section, she also talks about your quilt backing. She talks about marking, so she has different suggestions for markers you can use, not just markers, marking tools you can use on your quilt. And then she gets into pin basing. So one of the things I really like about this book is that there are so many photos in it. So when she's talking about pin basing, you can see all the photos here. She's showing you how she goes through, how she does it. So of course, having text is great, having photos even better, depends on the type of learner you are. But I really appreciate all that information and the photos that accompany it. Here we get into tension, and you can see that she has another one of these charts here that you can fill in with the type of tension you're using depending on the top thread and the bobbin thread that you're using. Again, a helpful reference for sure, because if you're using different weights in the top and in the bobbin, it would be great to have this already completed, when you've done it previously or when you do it for the first time, so that the next time you use that combination, you can refer right back to it and make the adjustments on your machine right away without having to, play with your tension again and try and figure out what that sweet spot is. Now, one of the things she does in this book that's different from the first edition is when she's talking about her walking foot is she has this beyond straight line. So this is something that's a little different, where she's using some, in this case, utility stitches, but altering them to give a different look. So that is something that we don't always think about doing. We tend to think about straight stitching with a walking foot. You don't have to do straight stitching with a walking foot, and using some of the basic stitches that most sewing machines have and making some changes to the width and length can be really effective and give a totally different look to your quilting. Something else she talks about in here, which I found really interesting, is spiral, quilting a spiral, all right? I've got to say, I've never quilted a spiral, not that looks like that anyway, on my quilts. So I was really interested to see all the information she has about that. Again, we have all different photos on how to do it, and she talks about how to bury your threads on it as well. Then we get into free motion quilting. Okay, we've done the walking foot. There's lots of information there, and you can certainly stick with walking foot quilting if you wanted to. But if you want to break out into free motion after that, she has lots of information on that as well, starting with the simple wavy line, something I suggest my students start off with, so I love that. and then moving into lots of different quilting motifs. So there's lots of different suggestions in here of free motion quilting techniques. I often do something like this, actually, with the stars and loops is something I often do, great for a kid's quilt. She also has these little flowers in between, little hearts, things like that. So you can add different little motifs to a line. And of course, as I said, there's more and more and more different motifs that she shares in the book. There's also information on what to quilt in narrow borders, and I found this really helpful because that's always a really big question, right? You may have several borders on your quilt, and you're wondering, what do you do? Like, it's narrow, maybe I could leave it unquilted, but if I don't want to leave it unquilted, what can I put in there, right? It's sometimes difficult to think of ideas for that. So she has several different ones here. In these, you could actually use your walking foot to do the, as I would call them, kind of guardrails, if you will, and then use free motion quilting to do the motifs inside. Some more examples of that. She also gets into feathers and ferns, which is interesting. Different ideas on how to embellish your basic feather, all right, once you've done it. You can echo it. You can go on the outside or the inside, right? You can echo on the outside of it. You can go inside. She's also echoed here, but you could also go inside and fill in the inside of those feathers too, something we don't always think about. Now, this is something I found really helpful in the book, and it's something I often tell people as well. So she talks about, she says, I've heard it said that practice makes perfect, but I prefer to remember that nothing has to be perfect for it to be wonderful. Practice definitely leads to improvement, and I say that all the time. Practice, makes improvement rather than practice, to perfection. She says, and if you wish, you could ponder the rhyme we learned at school. Good, better, best, never let it rest until your good is better and your better, best, right? I'm sure you've heard that one, right? So she talks about finding a couple of motifs that you practice over and over till you get really comfortable with them. I was going to say get good with them, but I would say more like get comfortable with them, because when you're comfortable with them, you're probably also good at them, right? And then you can gradually add to your motif repertoire as you go forward. But instead of trying to learn, 10 or 15 different motifs right off the hop, that's a little overwhelming and it can stop you in your tracks. So I love her idea here that you learn a few and then you gradually add as you go along. Makes it so much easier when you sit down to quilt your quilts. Okay, then she has some other ideas here where you're combining walking foot quilting and free motion quilting. You don't always have to do one or the other. It doesn't have to be that cut and dry, right? You can do some walking foot quilting. Maybe she's doing these lines in here with the walking foot quilting, and then some free motion in between those lines. Another thing that she has added here is this high definition quilting. This is really interesting. I was really intrigued by this. She's using different weights of thread here. So you can see the lighter weight thread in there, and then these heavier, probably a 12 weight thread that she's using. So those really pop out. So again, you don't have to stick with the same weight of thread or even maybe fiber of thread if you want to add more to it and draw attention to certain areas. Why not add some hand stitching as well? Again, she's got this quilted by machine, and then she's added running stitches with hand quilting, combining the two together. And she says she always starts with machine stitching, usually going for the walking foot. You can see these, maybe you can't see them very well, they're very fine, but little, just wavy lines with the walking foot, and then going back and filling in with different colors, in this case, of hand stitching, which is really cool. And in this case, she's actually left the knot, when she starts the hand stitching, had left it on top. Sort of looks like a little tassel. I think that's really cute. Who would think to do that, right? So that gives you lots more options for adding interest to your quilt, right? And of course, when we're practicing, we often practice on a square of fabric or a rectangle of fabric. And then what do you do with those when you're done with them, right? Usually not much, right? But she's saying you could take your practice squares and put them together into a quilt using the quilt as you go method, which I thought is brilliant, right? You've done that work. It's not only is it, going to make a nice project, maybe you want it for a cat or dog bed, I don't know, depending on how your practice stitches look at first and how you feel about that. But it can become something useful, and it is a good reference to have afterwards as well, that you can go back and look at different motifs when you're considering what to do on your quilt. And here's some examples of what she's done here, this quilt as you go quilt that she has finished. As you see, she's put some white sashing in between to join them together. She also talks about how to finish your quilt, and I want to talk about that in just a moment. But before I do, I want to say thank you and a big shout out to my Patchwork Pals members. Those are quilters who join my Patchwork Pals membership. It's a YouTube channel membership, and for a very small monthly fee, they help to support my channel, and they also get amazing perks such as first access and early access to all my videos. If you're interested in joining the Patchwork Pals membership, click on the join button below any of my videos. You'll get all the details. You could even join us today. Now let's take a look at the last part of the book, which is finishing your quilt, which is of course binding, right? Typically anyway, binding. So again, lots of photos in here to show you how she does this. She also explains how she puts the ends together so that you have a seamless, although it's not really seamless, right? but a not noticeable join in that binding. She also goes over to finishing the binding on the back as well, how to do that. So again, a great primer there for adding, creating and adding binding to your quilt. So if you're looking for information on quilting your quilt, especially modern quilts, these really work well on modern quilts, be sure to check out Modern Machine Quilting by Catherine Redford. I'll put a link up above and in the description below so you could get your own copy. And if you're wondering about other types of quilting motifs, free motion quilting motifs, to put on your quilt, don't worry, I got you covered. Check out this video that has all the helpful information that you need. And for more helpful quilting information, be sure to go to my website at www.chatterboxquilts.com.